A genre of citation that is likely to be new to many students in the spring is for one of the genres that is required of the annotated bibliography, which is a nonfiction ebook. So I'm going to provide some guidance in this video of how to use the interactive practice template from the MLA Style Center. We're going to use this to practice citing an ebook, and I will walk you through that process from beginning to end so you can see how to plug in all of the different elements of an ebook as you locate one in an actual search database. So this is the University of Texas Library's ebook platforms. These are places where you can specifically search for ebooks. And I'm going to scroll down because for this course, it makes sense for me to use the EBSCOhost ebook collection. So just for the sake of practice, I'm going to try to find an ebook on the topic of school lunches. Here we go. Nutrition standards for foods in schools, leading the way toward healthier youth. That sounds like it is on target. Okay, so I clicked on it and I've opened up the book so I can see the book over here, starting with the cover. And it takes me through each of the pages. Over here on the left-hand side, it gives me the table of contents for the book. And as I scroll through, it'll move on down, showing me which part of the book I am in. But let's say that I want to cite this book, that I find some information I need for my paper, and I want to cite this book. So let's use the MLA Interactive Practice Template to practice creating a citation for an e-book. The first element that is always needed on any citation is an author, if we have an author present. So let's look and see. It looks like here I can see it says author, and it has Institute of Medicine, Committee on Nutrition Standards for Foods in Schools, and then it has some names listed as editors. Okay, so I have a couple of different scenarios going on here. I have a Committee on Nutrition Standards for Foods in Schools and the Food and Nutrition Board. That is not a person that I can list as last name, comma, first name, which is what I am more accustomed to. I can also see here that this book has 2 editors. So this is a little different than what I might be used to citing, although it is common in academic book publications. Textbooks are frequently published by institutions or committees as opposed to individual authors, and they will oftentimes have editors or contributors listed. So I'm going to need to cite this a little differently than what I might be used to. The first question I have is, how do I cite an author that is not a person? So I'm going to jump over to Purdue OWL, and I'm going to look in the books section here, and I'm going to scroll down to find a book with a corporate author. Here we go. A book by a corporate author or organization. So it tells me that a corporate author may include a commission, a committee, a government agency, or a group that does not identify individual members on the title page. That's definitely what I have going on here, because on my title page, it has a committee on Nutrition Standards. So it's not an author listed by name, it's a committee. So how do I cite that? It says list the names of corporate authors in the place where an author's name typically appears at the beginning of the entry. And then it gives me an example. Here I can see American Allergy Association is listed as the author. And then it moves into the title of the book, publisher, and publication date. So I'm going to need to plug in the name of the committee instead of the name of a person for the author of this book. And then the title of the source, that's going to be just like it would be for any other book or article or anything else that I might have read, I'm just going to copy that title. So, Nutrition Standards for Foods in Schools Leading the Way Toward Healthier Youth. And then I'm going to paste it in to my citation. And the title of the source also ends with a period. And since this is the title of a book, it's also going to be in italics, which I can do by just highlighting it and clicking this little I over here. The next thing for me to keep in mind is that this is a book that I found from an online database, which means that it is contained. I'm not holding the book in my hand, so it's not self-contained. This book is actually contained in something else, which is this database where I just found it. Now, it's not common that you'll see the database information listed here with the book information, since that is something separate. But where you can usually look is most databases will have a button like this that says Cite or Citation. And if I click on that, it's going to show me a whole bunch of different types of citations. So I need to be really careful that I'm paying attention to what type of citation I need. For this class, we use MLA 9th edition. So I need to scroll down to that one. Here it is. And I can see when I look at this citation that they have the second container right here. That's that EBSCOhost where we found this. Okay, so that is one of the containers for my ebook. And since it's a container, it's also going to be in italics. The next element that I need in my citation is any contributors. Contributors refers to people who were involved in creating or publishing this work but are not credited as the author. The most common type of contributor that you might see is an editor or a translator. So you'll see some examples in the MLA Works Cited Page books on Purdue OWL. We can see some examples of what it looks like to cite a contributor. So in the basic book format, obviously the author is listed first, author, title, publisher, year. Very simple. When we are citing an ebook, it gets a little bit more complicated because an ebook is not self-contained the way that a physical book is. So we know that we're going to have at least one container. And then as other elements of the citation get more complex, the length of the citation also gets more complex. So that can happen when you have more than one author, and it can also happen if you have other contributors. And in the case of our book here, we have a corporate author and contributors, and all of those people need to be given proper credit in our citation. So in this case, we looked at the instructions for how to cite a book that had a corporate author, which we looked at the example here, and we created a citation like this. However, this is not so simple in that there's a corporate author and nobody else involved, because we also have two editors who are listed on the title page, Stallings and Yakhtin, and we do need to give credit to those editors in our citation. If the book had no author listed, then the editors might be listed in the author position. As you can see here in the sample of a translated book, we can see that Howard, Richard, translator is listed in the author position. But in this case, we have a book that has a corporate author and editors. So we're going to need to fit them into the additional contributors section of the citation. And the way that that looks is we can look here in this section that's titled A Work Prepared by an Editor. Notice that there is an original author here, then the title, and then it says edited by and someone else's name. This is the format that we are going to use for our additional contributors. If you had a different citation that had a translator, you might also include translated by in this position, and then the name of the translator if you had the original author. So we are going to be using this format in order to plug in the editor information using the MLA interactive template that we've been using. So I know it's going to say edited by, because I have editors. And when I look on my title page, they're actually called editors. So I know that they did the editing of the text. And then I have the two names, Virginia A. Stallings and Anne L. Yachtine. Now, if this was the author going in the very first position in the citation, the thing that comes first in my Works Cited page, then I know I would do last name, comma, first name, because I know that the order of my citations is in order by author last names. But the edited by section actually comes here in the middle of the citation, and you do not have to change the order of the author's names in this particular position. So you'll see it just says edited by Margaret Smith in this example, and I'm going to use that exact same positioning to plug in my editors as the additional contributors. So Virginia A. Stallings and Anne L. Yachtine, I'm going to plug them in just like that. So edited by Virginia A. Stallings and Anne L. Yachtine. Okay, and now I can see up here in my citation that's coming together here, I can see the edited by Virginia A. Stallings and Anne L. Yachtine has been plugged into my citation. That is how I would add those editors in there. For the remainder of my citation, I should be looking for the version, number, publisher, publication date, and location. I'm going to jump back over to my book, and I'm looking on the title page. I can see the publisher, and I see a publication location. I didn't see anything about any versions or numbers, so I'm going to look through the copyright page to see if there's anything listed about this being a particular edition or version or number of this textbook. Normally that would also appear on the cover, but you can see it on the copyright page as well. But as I'm scrolling through, I don't see anything specifically denoting that this is a version or number or edition of this text, meaning that it's very likely the first edition. And this is a really handy addition that this book has here. It has a suggested citation at the bottom of the copyright page. Notice it says it has IOM for the Institute of Medicine, which we have listed as our author. It has a publication year of 2007. It has the title of the book, the publication location, and then it also has the publisher, the National Academies Press. So I'm going to plug in the National Academies Press for my publisher, and I'm going to plug in the publication year. But I'm skipping over version and number because those are not explicitly listed. And then for location, if this was a physical book I was holding in my hand, I would input the publication location of the physical book, which is the Washington, D.C. location that is listed here. But I'm not actually reading the physical copy of the book. So I need to cite the location where this actual copy of the book is that I am reading. And since it's not a physical copy, I need to provide that web address. Since this is a book that was found through an online database, I need to find the DOI, or the Digital Object Identifier. That's also known as a permanent link or permalink. And in order to see that, there's often a link or a button in the database that says permalink or permanent link if it doesn't say DOI. When I click on the permalink in this database, it opens up the permalink right here. And then you can see there's the address of the permalink right after it. So you can see I'm in the University of Texas Library, and I'm just going to copy. I can either right click and copy, or I can Control-C to copy. And I'm going to paste that into the location because that is the digital address for where my ebook is found. And as that is the last entry in my citation, it always ends with a period. So now when I scroll up to the upper right-hand corner of the page under the words Your Citation, you can see that everything I have entered into this interactive practice template has been plugging in to the citation up here at the top of the screen. Now, it does look a little wonky because of just the limited space that's available right here, but I can copy and paste this into my Works Cited page. So there's actually a very practical reason that this interactive practice template can be really helpful. So I can actually come into my Works Cited page and I can just paste it right into my Works Cited page. Now, there is a likelihood that you'll need to do a little bit of correcting for spacing. So notice there was like no space in between my title and my author. So you might need to double check that everything is spaced correctly, that it's formatted correctly. But if you formatted it correctly in the interactive practice template, it will copy it exactly the way that it was formatted, including your spacing. So to correct for that, you can make sure that you include a space after each entry. And then when you copy it, it will include that space as well, so that your items are not sitting on top of each other. And then, of course, I want to make sure that it is in Times New Roman 12-point font and double spaced. But that is a really quick and handy way to create a citation and plug it into your Works Cited page.